Hi, Ida here. It's time for the seventh and the last episode on the 7-day 7 viewers tag that was started by Y at on the Cusp Tarot. Today it's time for the Tarot Happiness tag I decided to finish with. I've noticed that some use that, others use a shout out tag. That's what Y did, but I just thought this was more fun. This tag, Tarot Happiness, originated with Strength Reverse, I think. And before I get started, I just want to say that I've been doing a lot of tags, a lot of VRs lately, especially the last week. Next week I will come out with some new material that is more like original and more mine. So stay tuned for that. So now to the things that give me tarot happiness. These are in no particular order, completely random as I thought of them. The first one is the art. I really love art. I really like looking at pictures. That's one of my greatest joy in life in general. So I really enjoy decks with good artwork. This is the Thoth Tarot, by the way, by Aleister Crowley and Frida Harris. I mean, just look at this. This is the Klimt Tarot that I showed you some cards from before. So that's one thing that gives me tarot happiness. Just looking at some of the really beautiful pictures. This is a magician, absolutely wonderful. Another thing that gives me tarot happiness is when I find that I know the meaning of a card. As a beginner, I still don't always remember all the meanings of all the cards, so sometimes I have to go and look it up. But I get really happy when I see a card and I'm like, I know what that means. It's a good feeling, and it also shows that I am actually making progress, because sometimes when you're learning, you don't always notice the progress you're making. It feels like you're not really getting anywhere. So when I get that, when I know the meaning of a card, that feels really great. Another thing that gives me tarot happiness is when I do a reading and I get some really good answers from that. I feel that there's something like really profound and meaningful that I can take with me into my life from the reading. That also gives me a lot of happiness. Hang on. Okay, slight interruption there. The fourth thing that gives me tarot happiness is kind of like the previous one, but it's when I'm trying a new spread, and I find that a reading with that spread also gives me something like really useful, or gives me some insight that sort of really makes sense to me, and that is really something that is really meaningful or really like profound. What else? Learning from others gives me a lot of tarot happiness, especially YouTube. Watching videos by all you brilliant tarotists on YouTube has taught me a lot, and that makes me happy. A good shuffle, that's something that a lot of people mention, but it's true. I mean, there is something very satisfying about a really good shuffle where the cards just sort of get together like this. I mean, that does make you happy, doesn't it? Yeah, and something that gives me tarot happiness is this guy. This is my favorite tarot card, the Devil. A lot of people sort of cringe when the Devil comes up in a reading, but I just think it's the most interesting card. There are so many layers to it. Just look at this. There are several different layers going on here. And it's just very interesting and very fascinating to look at that. And the Devil can be scary. I mean, the Devil can be about all these scary things like being stuck in a really dark place. It can be about really destructive behaviors or really destructive relationships. It can be about addictions and things like that. It can be about a lot of really dark and difficult things, you know, all these challenges that you're really struggling with. So it makes sense that a lot of people sort of feel a bit uncomfortable with the Devil. But I also found that that's just one side of the coin, because what I also see in the Devil is like the ultimate freedom. This is the ultimate freedom card, because the Devil, he doesn't care about any divine law. He doesn't care about social convention. He doesn't care about norms. He doesn't care what others might think. He's not going to judge you. He's certainly not going to shame you. He doesn't care at all. Whatever you do, you can do, as far as he's concerned, you can do whatever you please. And he is about hedonism. He is about lust and going wherever pleasure takes you. And he's about letting go of all the inhibitions and going absolutely wild and crazy, and going to that place of ecstasy and of euphoria. And everything can be bad in excess, of course. And I think with the things that we're doing with in this sort of area with the Devil here, I think the problem is that the margins are very narrow. You can very easily slip into a place that's very destructive. But I also think that if you have the courage to go there, to really let go and really let yourself be wild and crazy sometimes, and if you give in to the ecstasy and the euphoria, I also think that there is a lot of like really profound and intense and radical healing there, especially in a society and in a culture like ours that is really rather oppressive in a lot of ways. So I think it's, in that sense, it can be a rather good card too. I tend to think that that's what it speaks to, depending on the context, of course. Tarot is always about context, but I've noticed that when this comes up in a reading for me, it usually sort of hints that maybe this is a good time to let go and be a bit wild and crazy, you know, give in to that ecstasy, and you know, walk that very thin line between euphoria and ecstasy and madness. So that is my favorite card, and that gives me a lot of tarot happiness. What else do we have? Yeah, I don't always do daily cards, but I sometimes do. And what gives me happiness is when I, at the end of the day, and I go back and I have a look at the card, and I try to see in what ways I have seen that card sort of manifest during the day. And I really like it when it's really clear, and that sort of just sort of is really obvious that, oh, that's what that card was about. That gives me happiness. The study of the tarot gives me a lot of happiness. I really enjoy learning new things. I really like studying. And getting a new book about tarot. I'm really bookish. So getting a new book and reading it and finding that it is really great. When you find one of these really, really, really good tarot books, that gives me a lot of happiness. I just like using the tarot for inspiration and empowerment and magic. And not just like in readings, but if there's something that I want to change, if there's something I want to manifest, I like to just sit down with my decks and find one or a few cards that best represents what it is I want to manifest, and then I can sit and meditate on that, or usually I put them up somewhere I can see them, like on the altar or on my coffee table in the living room. So I have them there, I see them, and they serve as a reminder and as inspiration for me. I also really enjoy the sort of the feeling of the headspace that I'm in when I do readings. That sort of calm focus that I get into when I do readings, that also gives me a lot of happiness. And like getting like creative with the tarot in different ways. Using the tarot, for instance, I write a lot, and sometimes of course I get ideas for stories and I write them. Sometimes I want to write something, but I don't really have anything, and then I like to just draw cards. Like, so this is this is going to be the beginning, there's going to be a middle, and there's going to be an end, and you know, I need a hook and whatever. And also like with the personalities, with the characters, I do the same, like what's the motivation, what's the profession, what are their fears, what are the backgrounds, and all that. And then I use that to weave a story together based on the cards I draw. That's really fun. And also like getting really, really, really creative with how you approach the whole thing, like doing readings without even using a tarot deck. We've done that one night at work, and where I just had one of my colleagues walk around and pick up things that he found, and I had him remember like which order he picked them up, because that of course would be the positions in the spread if I used the Celtic cross or whatever, and then sort of worked with that, like with the question. I don't remember the details, but okay, so the current situation is stereo strips. What does that say? What does that mean? And look at, you know, the shape and the colors or whatever you can think of. So the outcome is going to be a scalpel. That's interesting. So you can have a lot of fun in a lot of different ways with the tarot, even if that's not technically tarot, but it's kind of the same principle. And I also like the concept of tarot, and like I love this whole sort of occult, magical, mysterious thing. I have always been very drawn to that. I remember when I was a child, I can't have been more than perhaps 6 or 7 years old. We were sitting in the summer house. It was probably raining since I was out indoors, and I had found this deck of cards, and it wasn't a tarot deck. It wasn't one of the play cards, but they were round, and they were really old. Me being born in the 80s and 6 years old, that probably meant that it was from the 70s, but it was really old. And I remember I thought that was like, so someone apparently had told me about the tarot already at that time, because I was like really fascinated with the cards and the sort of magical, mystical, fortune telling things that I wanted to do with these cards. So that whole thing has always been very sort of appealing to me. I always really liked that and had a fascination for those kind of mystical, occult things. But I think that's it. That are the things that give me tarot happiness, at least that I could think of right now. I hope you enjoyed this. As I said, there will be some more original content coming up, hopefully next week. Please subscribe. If there's anything you want me to make a video about, please let me know. Thanks for watching.